Welcome to another episode of Something Came from Baltimore. I'm your host, Tom Gowker, and tonight on the phone, I have the legendary jazz bass player, Steve Swallow. Steve Swallow has been in the business since the 60s, and he is an influential performer who helped define the sound of post-bop, fusion, and modern creative jazz. Steve Swallow plays the bass like it's a guitar. He's 79 years old, and he is still the punk rock god of the jazz world. John Scofield is a masterful jazz guitar improviser, and he knows all about the jam band world as he's played with Phil Lesh, Medeski Martin and Wood, Pat Metheny, and Miles Davis. Both John Scofield and Steve Swallow has worked together off and on throughout the decades, and they sat down with drummer Bill Stewart one day and went through the Steve Swallow catalog, and that is where you're getting Swallow Tales. Swallow Tales was released on June 12th, 2020, and it is on the ECM Records.
Hello?
Hi, is this Steve?
Yes, it is.
Hi, this is Tom Gowker from Something Came from Baltimore.
Yeah, hi, Tom. How you doing?
Hey, good. We got 15 minutes. I'm going to ask you some questions, and we're going to get you on to the next thing.
Yeah, sure. Sounds there. Anything you got?
Okay, I'm going to make you cry, just like we do on Barbara Walters.
Okay, fair enough.
Oh, my God.
I'm in tears already.
Yeah, you're not even ready for that. Okay, so Steve Swallow, welcome to Something Came from Baltimore.
Oh, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, are you located in New York?
Yeah, upstate New York. I'm about 2.5 hours north of the city.
Are you still quarantined, or are you able to get around?
I'm beginning to poke around. Although I must say, and I don't mean to minimize the impact of the virus, which is, of course, it's a horrible thing, but I've enjoyed the quarantine immensely. I've had a great time. Doing pretty much exactly what I do when I'm not on the road, which is to sit around with my partner Carla, who's also a musician, and make music in the house. It's been a lovely time.
You are going to hit your 80-year mark in October. And so that's a major milestone. Do you have any like dietary or health regimens, or are you able to fight off arthritis? You're doing the bass. I want to see if there's any kind of guide that we can give to people. How are you doing it?
Well, that's a good question, and one that I haven't been asked before. I suppose, like anybody who is approaching 80, I'm thinking about all of that. I'm thinking about mortality, and kind of wishing that there's this faint hope that I'm eternal, and it'll just keep going. But should that not be the case, I've been doing what I think has become kind of conventional wisdom. I'm eating less meat, concentrating on fruits and vegetables. Carla and I walk a considerable distance every day. And I do believe that music, and in particular playing the bass, has been over the years a tremendous tonic. It's when you're young, you tend to squander everything, and now I'm reserving everything, all my resources. I'm very, very conscious of treating myself with care, treating myself and the world around me with care. They seem to be inextricably linked, and I'm hoping that you can do it by making decisions of conscience about how to live. You can actually prolong this mad dance that we're on, and prolong the planet's existence as well too. Because as I've become aware of my own mortality, I've become aware of the planet's mortality as well. I strongly suspect nothing is forever, and that it's on us to make us as much as we can of what we've got here.
You know, as
That's
a child in the early 70s, it was very common that People would pass in their 50s. It was just a commonplace. With substance abuse in the jazz world, there people didn't even make it to their 50s. Was there ever a turning point in your life where you're like, I think I want to take this path instead of the path that was already presented to you?
Yes, there was. I think there wasn't a particular moment, a kind of road to Damascus moment for me, but a kind of gradually dawning as I rounded out my middle age, that I'd better take better care of myself than I had. I also began to notice that some of the musicians and composers that I loved most did some of their best work in their latest and last years, and I've felt all along that I was kind of a late bloomer myself. So there just seemed to be good reason to want to prolong my life and to stop smoking cigarettes, stop drinking alcohol, all of the stuff that I had done to some extent to excess at one time or another. I noticed that some of the composers I most admired did their best work at the ends of their lives. Bach and Beethoven spring to mind. Bach, the musical offering was one of his last works, and it's my favorite. And Beethoven's last quartets are not chopped liver either. And as I have a kind of parallel career as a writer, in addition to my work as a bass player, it occurred to me that there was good reason to try to sustain my life as long as I could, and I've been on that path since. I suppose I kind of woke up in my 40s, early 50s. Woke up to the possibility that I might die. When you're 20, you think you're immortal. Either you think you're immortal, or you think you want to die when you're 35, just like Charlie Parker. And that has a kind of profound negative effect on how you act during those young years. But if you're lucky, you survive them and come to your senses. And I think I came to mine somewhere around the age of 50.
At one point, John Scofield was a student at Berklee College in Boston, and you played bass while he played guitar. How did that connection evolve?
By the time I met him, he was kind of in suspended animation in Boston. He had finished his career as a student at Berklee and was kind of poised to leave for New York City to make his fortune. And I had just arrived as a teacher at the school, and so we met informally after hours. He was kind of hanging around with a group of very talented young students and ex-students who had kind of gravitated to Gary Burton's office, and there was jamming going on after the official school hours were over almost every day, and I kind of gravitated to that scene myself, and met John, and there was an instant connection. This was in 1974, I believe. I saw immediately the first time we played together that he was destined to be a major player, and subsequently I sought him out and made sure that we were aware of each other and well connected, so that by the time he left for New York City, I knew we would continue to hook up. And we have, over the years, consistently. It's been since the mid-1970s. Hardly a year has gone by when we haven't played together.
Who came up with the idea of the record, Shallow Tales?
John did. That was entirely his idea. I was needless to say, I was pleased that he thought of it. But you might talk to him about it, but it just kind of occurred to him, apparently, that he knew a lot of my tunes. We'd been playing them at sound checks and kind of informally for years. Most of the playing I'd been doing with him for the past 2 or 3 decades, I guess, was in a trio context, initially with Adam Nussbaum, the drummer, and then subsequently with Bill Stewart, who's on the record playing drums. And we for live performance and for our previous recordings, we'd always played John's music. And I thought it made sense that we did that. There was a kind of, it gave the music a kind of a unity to be playing only his songs. And I love the way he writes, especially I love the way he writes for guitar. But as I said, at sound checks and for the fun of it, we would occasionally play my songs, and I knew that he had a fondness for them. And I guess eventually it just came around. The idea that there was an album in there was had been stewing in John's mind for some time. And I think he did it just right too. He elected not to make it an elaborate production at all, but to make it in the manner that jazz records used to be made. We did the whole thing in an afternoon in about 4 or 5 hours, and we knew that that's what we were doing. That we were going to play first takes on these songs, and that was going to be it. And that created a kind of atmosphere in the studio that's increasingly rare. I think most records are made these days in a matter of weeks or months, and you can fix your mistakes, and there's always another take and all of this. And all of that kind of went out the window. We knew when we arrived at the studio on that fateful day when we made the trio recording Swallowtail, that it was time to put up or shut up. We were just going to play these tunes, and what it was. And I'm very happy that we managed to have a good day. We lucked into a good day.
John Scofield's album covers are normally pretty funky. He really is focused on pop art. And this album is very dark and moody. The cover is shocking because the songs are very joyful. and you guys look like you're having fun. And it feels like it must have been a dark, like March day or rainy or something. What was the reasoning for that album cover?
Well, it was indeed a rainy day. That's an interesting coincidence, I think. But I do believe that the album cover was the product of the ECM art department, and typical of an ECM album cover far more than it was typical of a John Scofield cover. And maybe there is a kind of disconnect there. I think you're right to see that the mood of the music doesn't correspond accurately to what's on the album cover. But if you have a foot-long section of ECM albums on your shelf, this one will fit right in with the other 20.
You're 100% correct. ECM has their own kind of graphics. You can always tell them apart.
And ECM also kind of has its own sound and its own taste in repertoire, which is essentially the taste of Manfred Eicher. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, I think, is that Manfred decided to release this music. He wasn't involved in making it. He wasn't at the studio. We made the album on spec, as they say, speculating that some company might be interested in having it. And we were surprised that Manfred Eicher heard it, liked it, and immediately said that he wanted to release it. I'm glad he did. It's because ECM has a certain reach, and it also has a certain audience. And I'm glad to have this particular album out there on ECM because it kind of defies the ECM stereotype, and it might lead some of the usual ECM audience into places it hasn't ventured before.
You're ahead of the gun. I didn't make you cry once. I don't know why.
No, you made me laugh, though, and I'm grateful for that.
I tried to break you down. I don't know how this happened.
Well, try again someday.
Yeah.
I'm vulnerable. I've been had.
Well, the beauty, we only had 15 minutes, and I felt it would be better just to do more of like get to know Steve kind of questioning, and we can intersperse the music between that instead of just breaking that. A lot of times I just break down the songs, and we talk about the songs and where they come from and whatever.
No, this is good. I'm glad you got to the topics you did.
Yeah, most people know these songs anyway, so it's not like why beat the dead horse? Why don't we talk about you and what's going on in your world? So I thank you very much for talking to me on Something Came from Baltimore.
Thanks for having me. I much enjoyed it.
Hi, it's Tom Gauker, and I am the host of Something Came from Baltimore. Something Came from Baltimore is a words and music podcast, and it has famous and future famous artists like Sean Jones, Rupert Holmes, Auntie Hammy, Joey DeFrancesco, Go-Go Penguin, Joey Alexander, Bucanti, Gerald Albright, Paula Cole, and Kat Edmondson. It's music that matters. It's music for your ears. Listen and subscribe to Something Came from Baltimore and be a part of that Be More music scene.